right, we will go ahead and get started. Glad to see everyone. All right. Hello, folks. We will get started here as we're letting folks in from the waiting room. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we go through this workshop. You can also check our social medias or email, any of those things. Today, our skills building workshop is on being a welcoming and constructive chair or discussant. So talking about how we can create this welcoming and constructive scientific program in MoTSIG, particularly in our roles as chairs and discussants. We have two presenters, Jason Chen and Karen Gill will present for us. And then I am Kimiko Chang, and Tao Lee is our other facilitator. So quick introduction to me. I'm Kimiko Chang. I am a fifth year at Ohio State University. I'm a doctoral candidate. My research primarily surrounds motivation, looking at expectancy value theory and sense of belonging, looking at students' identities there and the overlap. I am the senior co-chair for the GSC for MoTSIG, along with my junior co-chair, Sangeeta. And then Tao is also a doctoral candidate. He's in his fourth year. He is helping us facilitate. We're very grateful. He has helped us organize all of these skills workshops. I will go ahead and ask Jason to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Jason Chen. I'm a professor of educational psychology at William and Mary. Great to see you all. Oh, and I should also say I'm the chair of the Motivation SIG. That's probably an important detail.
And Ken.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Can Gill. I am a third-year doctoral student in the Department of Educational Psychology at the University of Oklahoma. Excited to be here. I guess for context, to maybe help people understand who I work with, I work primarily with Dr. Ben Hetty as well as Dr. Allison Cuenca. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And then we just wanted to share, these might come up, but some upcoming AERA things, particularly for our graduate students. We have Kira Bennett conversations and our mentor-mentee sign up. There are links there, and also check the newsletters for those. And we'll have a post-AERA workshop as well. Thank you very much. I will hand it over to Jason and Can now. Get us started.
All right, great to see everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second here. Let's see here. Okay. Can everybody see the welcome screen? Okay, very good. Thank you. I just want to say first, thanks, Kimiko and Tao, for putting this together. You guys have been a really strong driving force behind this effort, so thank you very much. And without further ado, I'll just jump right in. So let's get going. So let me just share some key parts of Motivation SIG's vision, just to kind of set the foundation for this talk. Our strengths, I think, as a community, are our consistent focus on grappling with issues of justice and equity, especially given our current political climate in the US, and also our commitment to creating a very warm and tight-knit community here. I think that we're known for mentoring early career folks, grad students. Our mentorship activities are comprehensive. They're year-round. They develop people during the entirety of their educational and professional trajectories. So I'm really proud of that. I want to make sure that our SIG continues that. So my goal as a chair is to have everyone who's involved in any way with the MoTSIG, whether you're a presenter, a panelist, an attendee, whatever, to leave the conference thinking to themselves, wow, that SIG should be the model for how all SIGs and divisions run their program. And so with that goal in mind, I'd like to share two stories just to get us thinking about how we can run our sessions, especially for chairs and discussants. All right, so I'll just share the first story as Last year, when I was the discussant for 2 sessions in Philadelphia, I tried something I had never done before. I asked all the participants to record themselves pronouncing their names the way that they wanted to be addressed. I'll get into the specifics for how I did that later, but I can tell you that that one decision made a huge difference. Multilingual presenters were especially grateful for that. The second story is that at last year's conference, also in Philadelphia, and also at another conference I had done a few years ago when I was discussing, I tried something that Ellen Usher recommended. Ellen Usher is my my academic sibling, so shout out to my big sister. And she said, you know, when you're discussant, you should do 4 things. First, you should talk about what did we learn today. Second, you should talk about what feedback can I offer for each presenter. Third, you should talk about what still needs to be clarified about the topic. And then finally, you should talk a little bit about like what you'd be excited to see in the future for this topic. In both situations when I did this, after the conference session, I had presenters and audience members just tell me that that session was the most helpful session they had attended all conference long. And so in my presentation, what I'd like to share is a template for how all discussants can approach their task so that attendees know that their trip out to the conference was worth their while. Okay, so first things first, names are important. So you got to get them right. LinkedIn is a super easy way to help you get it right. So I've got an image here, and you'll see that, you know, whenever you go to any profile on LinkedIn, if you see the little speaker icon next to their name, it means that they have an audio recording of how to say their name. So question is, how do you record your name? First, you should know that this only works on your mobile app. So on your mobile app, go to your profile and click on that pencil icon. And then at the bottom of that next page, you'll see your audio recording. And you'll just want to click on that. Just a little pro tip, speak slowly and clearly. That's going to go a long way. Okay, so now that you've introduced all paper presenters and you've pronounced their names correctly, and after everyone has finished presenting, now it's your turn as discussant to talk. So the first thing you should address as a discussant is the answer to this question. What did we learn from today's papers? So you want to highlight ideas that you found especially compelling and try to draw common themes that surface in more than one paper. Here's an example of what a key takeaway from a paper presentation might look like. This is one that I did. And so here I identified a theme that seemed to pop up in more than one paper. Next, you want to offer some constructive feedback for each individual presenter, and then also it's just feedback for the audience. So be sure to identify the most important critiques rather than spend time on every critique that you had. And then you can offer to email your feedback to each presenter by asking them to email you so that you can reply back. Here's an example of constructive feedback that I offered to one author. And then here's another example. Whoops. And then here's another example of constructive feedback, which I offer to the audience about what I saw in the majority of the papers. So then third, you want to identify specific issues that still need to be clarified. It could be about the overall theme for the session, or it could be about specific issues that you saw in individual papers. Here's one example about a specific person's paper that I gave. And then here's another example about the session topic in general. So these are examples that you can sort of provide. And then finally, you can just end by sharing your own views about what you think would be really exciting to see in future research on the topic. Some examples that I included are here. So you can speak generally to the theme, you know, in general, or you can speak to some specific papers. And that's what I would suggest for being a discussant. So I'm going to pass this on now to the next discussant, or the next presenter, Mrs. Can.
Sweet. Thanks, Jason. So I guess let's just get right into what it means to be a chair of a session. The idea that I want to kind of use to help guide through this conversation is your role as the chair is to essentially ensure everybody is able to present in a timely manner and to ensure that the session begins when it's indicated and concludes when it's indicated. And so I kind of created this visualization to help folks get an understanding of the different formats that you may encounter as chair. And so if you're chairing a roundtable session, something you may notice is it's super noisy. People are asked to sit around, round tables, and um, duty, if you will, is to ensure these folks know how long they have to speak. And it's also your duty to ensure these folks know what to expect, right? So what order are these folks presenting in? How long do they have? How long is the Q&A session? And so that's what you're seeing on the left there where it says roundtable session. It's usually, I have this label as an informal paper session, just because it's a bit less high stakes in terms of the intimacy of the conversation itself. Moving over to the right, I have paper and symposium sessions. I would consider these to be a bit more formal in nature, and the format's a bit different, right? So in those sessions, you might have 4 to 5 talks as opposed to, let's say, 3 to 5. Both sessions, for the most part, are usually 90 minutes, and formal sessions will typically include a discussant, which Jason had talked about earlier. And so something that I think is very important to do as a chair is to get in touch with the presenters and give them a clear idea about what to expect before they get to the session itself. And so you want to do this well before the conference, just so folks have an idea about how long of a talk they might need to prepare. And so that's what you're seeing on the right here. It might take the chair 5 minutes or so to introduce everybody. If you have 3 talks, each of them might be 25 minutes or so, 4 maybe 15 minutes or so, and 5 maybe 12 minutes or so. And then the discussant usually will speak for 15 minutes, but after you've communicated with them, they might indicate that, they only have 5 or 10 minutes worth of remarks. And so you may want to get in touch with the discussant before getting in touch with the speakers, so you can accurately give the speakers information about the amount of time they'll have to actually speak and the amount of time they'll have for the Q&A. So that's what I have for this slide. If you could move to the next one. So what should you do as a chair before AURA? The first thing you should do is ask the discussant for a timeline for papers. And so what I'm getting at here is you would want to get in touch with the speakers and ask the speakers to share their papers with the discussant. And usually this will happen 2 to 3 weeks before the actual convention. And you may want to then relay to the speakers what the discussant plans to do, how long they plan to speak. Go next. Creating and sending out a schedule. So get in touch with the discussant first, get an idea about how long they may plan to speak for, and use that information to then update or indicate how long each person has to speak. For the second one, I also have including presentation order. The reason I have this is because sometimes there are situations where folks are exiting a session and entering a session under a tight timeline. And so there could be situations where people might have a preference to go first or last. And so usually I try to coordinate that beforehand so we all know what we're doing. Asking participants and discussant if applicable to send you presentation materials. I think this is something that's very useful because having all of the slide decks on one device can be helpful as you're transitioning between presentations that people are giving. It also allows for you to really reduce the probability of technical difficulties happening if someone's laptop dies or something of that nature. So that's stuff that you might do before the session. In the session itself, I think this is probably one of the biggest take-home messages I would give you is to show up early, because sessions need to run on time. And so if you show up early, you can account for any missteps that might be happening, or if folks are showing up late to the session. So you can really account for some of those things. And bringing a note card, right? You want to indicate to the speakers how much time they have. Let them know this information beforehand. Let them know you'll give them a 5-minute warning, 2-minute warning, 1-minute warning. And once their time is concluded, Usually you won't have to necessarily step in. People are pretty good about closing out their talk. But if you do have to step in, I think that's something that's important to know, because once again, keeping time is the core role of the chair. And so we want to ensure we're giving everybody enough space to talk, and that includes sessions that follow the one you're chairing. Explaining the format of the session to the audience. And so usually I like to do this in that 5-minute period where I'm speaking as the chair. I'll introduce myself. I'll tell the audience what to expect. We'll start with my remarks. We'll then go into this talk, then the second talk, then the third talk. And so there's a few different formats that you might use as a chair in terms of conducting the Q&A session, right? So you might give your own remarks, go into the first speaker, second speaker, and so on. Then the discussant may speak. Something I like to do that I think has been pretty helpful is to have a panel type of Q&A. So maybe hold your questions till the end is usually what I try to do. And the reason I do this is because it allows for every presenter to complete presenting, and then Q&A is something that can follow. And if there are questions that weren't addressed, you can always get in touch with the folks who were presenting. Introducing each speaker. And so this goes back to what Jason was saying earlier, getting names right, really understanding how these folks want their names pronounced, and if they have any preferences in the way in which you might say their name, or maybe they want to introduce themselves by saying their own name. And moving into the discussion section, introducing your discussant and letting them kind of take control of that part of the conversation. But after the discussant shares their remarks, kind of bringing it back in and keeping track of time and ensuring the Q&A session goes well, or people are able to conclude within the time parameters. And then facilitating the Q&A, right? And promptly thank everyone for their time, and ensure that people have information about the presenters. So if you want to continue this conversation, please do so probably outside, because another session will follow the one that you're chairing. And so just be sure to communicate these things, because I think the biggest tip I would give in terms of serving as a chair is to keep time, make sure we can start on time and end on time. And yeah, just creating structure for everybody and creating a space where everybody feels comfortable and confident. I think that piece about confidence really comes into play where when the chair is performing their role well, giving everybody information about what the expectations are. I don't have this on the slides, but something else I'd recommend is getting in touch when you're trying to get in touch with speakers. If you try a few times and you can't get a hold of them, getting in touch with their collaborators, that's a good way to try and get your message across if you're having a hard time getting in touch with folks. Cool. And that's all I have on my end. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thanks. Thanks for doing that. And Ken and I are very happy to address any questions or comments that the audience has. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, by the way. Matt, I see the hand up.
Hi, thanks for putting this on. This is a question on the getting in touch theme that I have been kind of going in circles about and need a sanity check. I've been trying to get in touch with folks who are students on panels, often international, so I can get their materials. There's no way to get an email that I'm aware of through the AARA system. Are there any ways for those of us who are supposed to chair or be discussants to actually communicate with presenters prior to the conference?
It's a great question. Maybe I can hop in for a little bit. Last year when I chaired a few sessions, I was able to track down email information of presenters when I went onto the AERA website. I think it is the case, though, that you might not be able to get in touch with every person. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was my experience last year. I went onto the AERA website portal and just kind of looked up the sessions.
Yeah, Matt, I had the same problem that you did. I did not find email information on AERA's website last year. I haven't tried this year yet, but I just did like a Google search, and a lot of times the students were on a paper with like in a group, and I just kind of went down the list until I found like somebody who was like, like a faculty member or something like that. And then I think in 2 cases I emailed that faculty director and I was like, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with so-and-so. Can you share the email address for that person with me? And that's what I did. Yeah, I don't know if other folks have had similar experiences and what strategies they took, but that's kind of what I did. But yeah, like I see in the comments here, Sarah Jones has said that it's a great question that you asked, Matt, and it's a similar pet peeve that she has had, and same with us. Yeah.
It also might be the case if you're really struggling with finding a contact, if they might be part of MoTSIG, you could try reaching out to us to see if we have an email for them. We might if they're part of MoTSIG.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. By the way, this is a really important thing, and I'm glad you asked that, Matt, because this was the case for me last year. I was the chair of a session, and I had been trying to get in touch with a particular group, and I never got anything back from them. And so by the time I got to the session, I was like, hey guys, I haven't heard from this group yet. I'm afraid that they might not show up. And so if that's the case, they're slotted for slot number 2. If they don't show up, then I'm just going to go right from 1 to 3 or something like that. And so, yeah, that's another reason why the chair's role is so important. And Ken did a great job of articulating that. Just because like sometimes you'll have these circumstances, and as the chair, you'll have at least a quick temperature read to see if that might even be a possibility.
Yeah, and I think kind of just communicating that with everybody presenting, right? This could be the case, and so just be prepared for this. I think the part that really scares folks is uncertainty, and so trying to really account for that. But yeah, not being able to get in touch with the speaker is definitely a big issue.
Yeah, and I don't know if other folks know this or not, but like if someone doesn't show up, and like are we supposed do we have some sort of responsibility to report that to AERA larger? Just because, I mean, like they get to say it on their CV, hey, I presented at this conference, but they didn't, Is that something that needs to be articulate or, written or reported somewhere? I don't know what the answer is to that. Yeah. Okay. I'll try to find out myself. Good. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I don't think there were other questions. Looking forward to seeing this on our YouTube channel, and it can be shared widely. So glad you all could come, and great seeing you all, and see you all in Denver.
Yeah, thank you all for your time.